Couple of stops and walk from the hearse to the grave.
At least it's not snowing or raining.
That's not true. Snuck it in before the weather.
Yeah.
You want a base first?
Big bird.
Big bird.
Is that right?
You're falling on.
Yep, there's from.
No, we buy the from. Never ba'ofel yahalof niketav yashut saharayim. Yipo mitzitcha elef u'ravami minecha elecha lo yigash. Rak beinecha tabit v'shilumat v'shanim yireh. Yata Adonai matzi el yon samcha me'onecha. Lo tiyuna elecha ra'ah v'nega lo yikrav lo alecha. Ima lacha v'tzavela v'shmarcha v'chol b'rachecha. Al kapayim yisa'uncha v'ntigraf v'eben raglecha. Al shacha v'afretan tigraf v'not shekir v'panim. Viva Shaka Faltegu Ategu Yad Hashmi. Ukrainu Vainu Imarno Pivatsala Faltegu Faltegu. Araf Yami Masfiegu Viaregu Viati. Araf Yami Masfiegu Viaregu Viati. Al Mekomat Tavova Shalom. May Sylvia go unto God in peace. Atzur Tamim Bakpalo Kichod Rachav Mishpat. El Amunah Vein Avel Tzadik Yasharhu. Atzur Tamim B'chol Pa'al Mi'omar Lo Matifal. Hashalifa Mata V'Ma'al Me'mita Mechayeh Marid She'ol V'Ya'al. Atzur Tamim B'chol Ma'aseh Mi'omar Lo Mataseh. Ha'omer V'yoseh Chesed Kinam Lanu Ta'aseh. U'Bizchutan Ekad Keseh Hakshiva V'aseh. Tzadik B'chol Drachav. Atzur Tamim Erech Apayim U'Malei Rachamim. Hamol Nevachusna Lavotu Banim Kelacha Adon Harachah. Aslichot v'harachamim. Tzadik atah Adonai lahamit lahachayot asher biyadcha tikton kol ruchot. Halila lecha zichronenu limchot v'yuna einecha v'rachamim aleinu tekufot. Kelacha Adon harachamim v'haslichot. Adam ben shana yiyeh u'elef shanim yichyeh ma'yifron lo kol hayah yiyeh. Baruch dayan hamet me'mitu mechayeh. Baruch hu kemet dino mishotek akol beino u'mishalem adam cheshbono v'dino v'admol ishmono dayayitenu. Yadanu Adonai titzedek mishpatecha titzdak v'dovrecha v'tiske b'shavtecha ve'en laharher achar midat shavtecha tzedik atah Adonai v'yashar mishpatecha. Dayan emet shofet tzedek v'emet baruch dayan emet shekol mishpatav tzedek v'emet nefesh kol chai b'yadecha tzedek malal yeminecha. Rachem Adonai u'pleitat sonyot yadecha v'tamar l'malach heref yadecha. Gedol ha'itzav v'rav ha'lili asher necha pekufot akol darchei b'nei Adam. Latet leish kidrachav v'chifrim alalav la'git yasher Adonai tzari v'lo v'lakabo. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach v'hishem Adonai mevarach v'hu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashpit v'yirba la'ashiva po v'lo ya'ir kol chamato. The rock, his work is perfect, and all his ways are just. The faithful God never falls, true and upright is he. The rock is perfect in every way. Who can question him about his deeds? The Lord has given, the Lord has taken. Praise be the name of the Lord. As we know, when we have a service, a funeral service, graveside, the service is divided into two parts. First, we take care of Sylvia. Just as she took care of us in life, so too in death, we take care of her. Make sure that she is laid to rest. Make sure we place shovels of earth into the grave so that we fulfill the commandment From dust we are created, to dust we return. So as soon as the device is taken away, we'll have Ray and Barbara first, and then we can all participate. Once we have completed that, then we will continue with the funeral service itself. We use the back side of the shovel, of course, for the first shovelful to show how difficult it is for us to participate in this ritual. So Ray and Barbara. Barbara, you want me to do it for you? Okay, here, let me. We can form two lines on either side here. If you want, we can do the rest of the rest of this later. Up to you. V'yashov ha'afar al ha'aretz k'shahaya, v'haruach tashuv el ha'elohim asher natana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May Sylvia Love's soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. Send comfort, O Lord, to those who mourn. Grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. Amen. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Sylvia's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. Psalm 15, Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai, mi yadlor ba'ohalecha, mi yishkon bahar kodshecha, halech tamim ufoel tzedek v'daver emet bilvavo. Lo ragal al eshono, lo asa l're'ehu ra'ah, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivzeh be'enav nimas v'et yirei Adonai yechabed, nishpa lahara v'lo yamir. Haspo lo natan b'neshech v'shochad al naki lo lakach, ose ele lo yimot la'olam. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere the Lord. Never retract the promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. And from the last chapter of the book of Proverbs, Eshet chayo mi'imtza v'rachok mipnei michra, batach ba'lev ba'la v'shala lo yachsar, kamala tuta v'lo ra kol yemei chayeha, kapa parsalani v'yadeha shelcha le'avyon, oz v'hadar levusha v'tischak l'yom acharon. Piha patcha v'chochma v'torat chesed al lashona, Sophia halichot beita velechem atzlut lo tochel. Kamu vaneha ve'ashruha ba'ala v'yahalala, rabot banot asuchayil va'at alita kulana. Sheker achein ve'hevel hayofi, isha yirat Adonai hi titalal. Tenulami priyadeha v'halaluha b'sha'ari ma'aseha. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy and extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her and says, "Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. Today, two of Sylvia's granddaughters and her son will speak to Sylvia's praises, and we'll begin with Stacy.
Mindy, I might need you. My Bubby was the best Bubby I could ever ask for. She was also the only grandparent I knew from either side of the family, which made her even more special. I was blessed to have her for almost 39 years. I have very fond memories of my Bubby. Where do I even begin? Let's start at Eastbourne Place, where she lived for many years before moving to Leisure World. There was a scent to Bubby's house that I can only describe as the Bubby cooking scent. Her house always smelled good. It was as if she made matzo ball soup and kugel every day, as those yummy smells filled her house every time I was over there. I loved going to visit Bubby. I used to run in, give her a hug and kiss, and then go into one of the bedrooms to find her cuckoo clock. Every time I was there, I begged her to turn it on. I just had to be in the room when it went off. Two other items of hers that I loved were a Hawaiian hula musical mechanical doll and a life-size doll wearing a certain attire. Bubby had everything you could possibly need at her house. I'm not kidding. When Mom and I would take Mindy back to the University of Maryland, we'd go shopping in Bubby's basement. We called it Bubby's bargain basement. Mindy got whatever she needed for her dorm room: toilet paper, paper towels, food, etc. Bubby was always fully stocked. She would have done well during this whole quarantine period. Bubby was constantly on the hunt for a good bargain, whether it was $5 watches from Florida, shoes, clothes, anything from the dollar store. One time she bought close to a dozen pair of Ked sneakers. They were on sale for less than $5 a pair. She bought them in several colors and sizes and let us each take a pair or two. December 25th was a special and fun day for our family. For those of you who don't know, Bubby and her twin sister, my Aunt Miriam, were born on Christmas Day. Their younger brother, Adolph, my Uncle A, got married on Christmas Day. Therefore, every December 25th for many years, we hosted the Sandler clan, like 30 to 40 of us, at our house to celebrate those occasions, other December birthdays, and Hanukkah, no matter when it fell that year. One year on Mother's Day, Bubby came over with trash bags full of stuff. We didn't know what was in there at first. We were just told to hit it like a piñata. All of a sudden, toothbrushes, dental floss, and money came flying out of the bags. We all started screaming and went after the money like a bunch of wild animals. One of my sisters may have been shoving money in her clothes. I could go on and on about my Bubby, and I know many of you could as well. Bubby loved every member of her family, cousins, nieces, nephews, and she bragged about her children and grandchildren. The last time I saw my Bubby in person was early February last year. Mom and I went to visit her, and Mom painted Bubby's nails red for Valentine's Day. Bubby was so happy that day. Bubby's probably watching this service thinking, "Stop making a fuss over me." Well, Bubby, you deserve to have a fuss made of you. I imagine that you've been dancing the shag with Zadie or arguing over the two best shoes with Aunt Miriam. Bubby, we love you and miss you so much.
Thanks, Stacy.
All right, there are going to be some repeats, sorry. Bubs who would answer to Aunt Sylvia or Aunt Sue once had hair of a silver hue. Silver Bubby would also answer to Miriam or Mir, as Gold Bubby was often near. Shopping with those two was an exhausting endeavor. Trapped inside the dressing room, trying on clothes forever. On the clearance rack items, they wanted a good deal. We'd always hear the same old spiel. How do you know that you don't like it? You have to try it on. Double teaming them didn't help. We'd both get gone. Guess how much I paid for this was a question often asked. And in their bargain breaking deal, they would proudly bask. Florida flea market watches were too good to turn down, and the twins gifted them to their family in town. There seemed to be a shoe balance which must be kept. One would buy a new pair as one returned a pair with no debt. Being with them was fine and dandy. You could score some trash can candy. JCPenney $5 plaid skirts, which I felt were too short, but she got them on sale for her girls. Okay, I gave them a whirl. Going shopping in Bubby's store was a treat. The stuff you would find in there was real neat. Why on earth she kept sanitary pads in there, I don't know. They were probably on sale from Woolworths a long time ago. From Samuel Gomper's picnics and trips to the beach, you never know who you would meet. The twins knew everyone. They traveled many places. No matter where they'd go, they'd see familiar faces. There was no Facebook with which to share news. Activate the Bubby connection. There was no time to lose. No need to use Twitter. Bubbies would tweet news quickly by phone. The word was on the street. The Bubbies would dance. They loved the shag. Chest to chest they danced, but they didn't brag unless it was about their grandkids and all of the amazing things they did. We'd go out to eat. Chinese food was a staple. We'd be the loudest ones. What was going on at our table? Speaking of loud, you should have heard the commotion on the boardwalk one night down by the Atlantic Ocean. Why were Bubby's children laughing so hard? Bubs wanted a tattoo of a Mahjong card on her chest of all places. And speaking about that, while playing rummy, we were told not to look at her rack. The smell of matzo ball soup at Bubby's was a special treat. She'd never sit down. She would just tell us to eat. Though the table would be overflowing with appetizers and meats like brisket and chicken and a whole lot of sweets. She'd ask us if we had enough to eat when our bellies were full. We'd already finished about half of her kugel. There's a picture of Bubby with her biceps flexed from when she worked at the store in case you were perplexed. After that, we'd visit her at Metro Stamp and Seal. That don't eat yellow snow stamp we used a great deal. From surprise parties at Aunt Helen's and Uncle A's or handing out money on Passover, we had many good days. Bob's once made a piñata out of plastic bags, and on Mother's Day, that is what she dragged into Mom and Dad's living room and said it was a tradition for all of us to break it open, all of her grandchildren. Once the bag finally broke, we were all very stoked. But guess what was inside? Dental floss, possibly Glide. There was money too, and thank goodness no Facebook, because we all know how funny we looked. Shoving money in our bras, yes, Stacy, that we collected. That was the technique we had perfected. So many memories, which we will cherish, of Bubs who we will greatly miss.
Girls, your Zadie's gone wild right now.
I was gonna say, you channeled Zadie pretty good.
And we're gonna have a few more repeat stories, so I apologize for that. This is from Barbara and me. As we were trying to convince Mom, and I'll try and get through it. As we're trying to convince Mom to move into assisted living, Mom kept saying, all good things must come to an end. She said it with such passion that I wrote it down. I never date anything when I write things down, but I dated this June 15th, 2016. All good things must come to an end. Hold on to that thought while I talk about Mom. Mom wasn't usually the leader. After all, she had Hai and Adolf and Miriam and my father to lead, and trying to deal with that bunch would have been too much to have another leader. But Mom made everything happen. She was in charge of the logistics. The show bulletin, the lodge bulletin, the store, the household, Bubby Sandler, the extended family, vacations. She always had her fingers in the pie, and making things happen was her domain. That and being Miriam's or Bubby's co-conspirator. Mom cared for her father when he was ill. She took care of her mother when she could no longer live by herself. And of course, she cared for Dad during his prolonged illness. And all the while, Mom kept everything running. Many of you don't realize that my father was not the youngest love son. There was a developmentally disabled son named Raymond who was institutionalized. And Mom was the one who took on the mantle of visiting him too. Mom also cared for the employees of Loves 5 and 10. In recent years, I got a call from Kathy Gates. Kathy was the daughter of Mary Gates, who worked at Love's for many, many years. She came across my name and she called me up. She was effusive about all that Mom and Dad had done for the family. She knew Dad had died long ago before the store closed, but she spoke of the kindness that Mom had shown to the Gates family. Dad would pay Mary's brother to change the oil and take care of his car. And Kathy told me something that neither Barbara or I knew. Kathy told me at one point, Mom and Dad got a new car. I'm not sure it was a new car. It might have been another used car. But when they got a car, they gave the car that James had worked on to him. Kathy said it made a tremendous difference for the entire family. James still talked about that up to the day that I talked to Kathy. I'm not sure James is with us anymore.
When Dad got sick, Mom ran the store. One of the neighborhood high school kids Mom had hired was showing up late every day to work. And to tell you the truth, I think most people would have just fired him. Mom sat him down and had a serious chat with him. And what she figured out was that he couldn't tell time. We didn't have cell phones and digital clocks back then, so you had to read the hands of the clock, and he couldn't do it. Mom started teaching him to tell time and helping him with his math. She sat down with him every day when he first got there after school, and she offered him an incentive. When he could show up every day for a couple of weeks, he would get a shiny new Timex watch. The kid learned to tell time. The kid got his watch, and Mom helped him learn about responsibility. Mom loved to laugh and enjoyed most of my father's jokes. But when Mom joked, it was often self-deprecating. So I'm going to talk about the same thing that my nieces talked about. When we were in Ocean City, we would kid her. Every henna tattoo store that we passed, we would suggest to my mother she needed to get a tattoo. And so what happened was she's walking along and she stops dead in front of one of these stores and starts looking at the placards. And she's looking at the skulls and crossbones and the gun tattoos and you know, you can imagine the stuff that was on there. And that's when we asked her, what the heck are you doing? And she says, I'm looking for a mahjong pile. And then without missing a beat, because by this time we were all laughing, she takes the neckline of her blouse, yanks it down in the middle of the boardwalk and says, and I'm going to put it right here. So that was my mother. And I think she particularly did that to her granddaughters because they were always talking about her boobs. So she had to get it back to her. Mom was tough. Carl Loves calls Mom a rock. She had to be tough to manage all that life threw at her. I'll never forget the time at Love's 5 and 10, she saw this big guy and he was shoplifting atom bomb perfume from the store. He was taking the little glass bottles, they were about this big, of this stinky cheap perfume, and he was shoving them in his pocket. And without hesitation, my mother picks up this piece of wooden dowel that was left over from curtain rod, and she takes it and she punctuated her speech with the dowel, shattering the glass with each stroke to his pocket, saying, "What you got in your pocket, mister?" The guy ran out of the store with his pants soaking wet. Barbara says that he probably still reeks of atom bomb. Mom's greatest passion was her family. She and Miriam were the most amazing identical of twins. Their connection was special. They would independently go shopping and end up buying similar and in some cases identical clothes or shoes. It was a regular occurrence at our house. The house was quiet. Mom would walk over to the kitchen phone hanging on the wall and she'd pick it up and she'd say, "Mir," and sure enough, before the phone even rang, she had picked it up and Aunt Miriam inevitably was on the other end. After Dad and Uncle Joe passed, they were constant companions. Their relationship was special to watch and even more fun to be a part of. Mom and Dad started dating when they were 14. Apparently, my dad was quite the heartbreaker. I never knew this before. Over the years, Barbara has met numerous women who confided that they had a crush on Stanley Love, but he wouldn't look at anyone but Sylvia. On the flip side, Dad constantly insisted that Mom was too good for him. And I think his mother helped put that idea in his head. Stanley and Sylvia were not only loves, they lived up to the name. Family didn't stop with Mom's siblings, parents, Dad, Barbara, me, and the grandchildren. Mom was constantly on the phone with aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews and cousins and relations that I still can't keep straight to this very day. And as she did with everyone, she treated them with grace and in her caring manner. I can't tell you the number of times in my life, and especially over the past few days, that relatives have told me that Mom was their favorite, fill in the blank, aunt, cousin, in-law, etc. You got it. Mom was my favorite. Your mom was my favorite. All good things must come to an end. All good things must come to an end. Mom, Bubby, Aunt Sue, Sylvia, you were a really good thing. Your physical presence among us may have ended, but we will forever be blessed with the love, the laughter, the smiles, and the memories you shared with us. Barbara and I love you, Mom.
Thank you, Ray, Mindy, and Stacy. What beautiful tributes to a wonderful woman. We extend our condolences today to Sylvia's children, Ray and Cynthia and Barbara, to her grandchildren, Stephen, Allison, Lori, Jim, Mindy, Stacy, and Vince, and to her great-grandchildren, Anders and Eric, and to Sylvia's many nieces and nephews. This has been an extremely trying and difficult week for the family as Barbara underwent the procedure in the hospital and suffered the passing of her husband, Stan. Our hearts go out to the entire family as they endure this emotionally difficult time. I knew Sylvia Love as one member of a dynamic duo with her identical twin sister, Miriam, and thankfully I was able to tell them apart by their different shades of blonde hair. They were twin pillars of Shaarei Tefillah congregation. Sylvia and her siblings and their families, Miriam and Joe Wilimowski, Hyman and Sarah Sandler, and Adolph and Helen Sandler, may they all rest in peace, founded Shaarei Tefillah on Riggs Road in DC nearly 70 years ago. They not only served as the foundation of the shul, their families alone provided a minyan, but they built our congregation into a thriving and vibrant community. Sylvia and Stan gave of their time and talents to enable Shaarei Tefillah to grow. Sylvia was active behind the scenes, always helping organize sisterhood events and helping with the monthly newsletter. Later, after Stanley tragically passed away in 1980, she worked for her cousin at Metro Stamp and Seal and helped provide all the Simcha plaques that were displayed prominently in the shul lobby. I always saw Sylvia with a smile on her face, and I always heard her laugh. She was always gracious and elegant, dressed well for services or any other event in a shul. That's who she was. Sylvia loved life, and she embraced the joys of life to the fullest. No matter what challenges came her way, the passing of Stanley at age 57, caregiving for aging parents in her home, Sylvia nonetheless saw life as a blessing to be celebrated every day. As members of our shul commented on Stacy's post on Facebook yesterday, Sylvia was always the life of the party. Younger shul presidents like Wendy Goldberg Abraham, Sharon Kay, Fran Kensky, to name just a few, all recalled how Sylvia and Miriam together were a hoot. Whether in a mahjong group at home or at a big family event, Sylvia was all smiles and in her element. Family was everything to Sylvia. She was born and raised in DC. She met Stanley when they were both 14 at an event for young people at the JCC. They married 8 years later and they worked together in Stanley's family store. Family was all around and they all celebrated Shabbat, holidays, and family milestones together. As we heard, she and Miriam were born on December 25th and Adolph and Helen were married on December 25th. So Christmas was a Jewish holiday in the Sandler Love family. Every year, the extended family would gather at Sylvia's home, and often the neighbors would wonder why the Jewish family's home was far more festive than any other house in the neighborhood. The extended family were seen together taking over a whole section of seats in the sanctuary on the high holidays, or a whole rec center for Passover Seders. Sylvia always saw her family as a blessing. Next week, we'll begin reading the section in the Torah that describes the design and construction of the desert sanctuary, the Mishkan. We're told that everyone contributed, men and women alike. As the Torah states, everyone gave kol ish asher yidvenu libo, every person whose heart was so moved. With dedication and true commitment, the community of Israel built a place of worship that would serve the spiritual needs of the community for generations. Our ancestors' devotion and generosity served as a lasting legacy for us to live by. The example of the Israelites in the desert was the example by which Sylvia lived her life. Her heart moved her to dedicate her life to the shul she built. Her commitment of time and effort inspired generations of women to give of themselves to the shul. And Sylvia's smile and good cheer taught that being part of a community is the best way to get everything out of life. May Sylvia's 98 years of life provide memories that will be a source of blessing and comfort to her family. Tehi nishmata tzara b'tzora chayim. May Sylvia's soul be bound in the bond of eternal life. Amen. Psalm 23. Mizmor LaDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar. Bin odesha yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magalei tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech begeit al mavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzararai. Tishanta v'Hashem en roshi kosira vaya. Achto v'chesed yirdafuni kol yamei chayai. V'shafti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We conclude the service with two prayers, and first the memorial prayer El Male, and if we can, we rise. El Male Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim. Ametzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina b'ma'alot kedoshim atoharim kezohar harakia masirim et nishmat bat Sheva bat Raphael altar v'Rivka Gita shahalcha l'olama began Eden tei menuchata anabal harachamim hastireha b'seter kanafecha l'olamim utzro b'tzro chayim et nishmata Adonai hunachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom amishkava, v'nomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Bat Sheva, Bat Raphael Alter, Verifka Gita, to the soul of Sylvia Love, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that a loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. Amen. And we conclude the service by reciting Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mivorach Leolam Omeo Maya Yitbarach Yishtabach Yitbahar Yitramam Yitnaseh Yithadar Yitalev Yitalal Shmei Dekudisha Brichu Le'ela Minko Berkata V'Shirata Tushbechata V'Nechemata Gamiran Ve'alma V'Imru Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Imromav V'Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael Amen. He who grants peace in the heavens, may he grant peace to us. Amen. And as we conclude the service, we say to Barbara and Ray and the family, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem b'toch sha'ar v'lei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners in Zion and Jerusalem.
End and on the side.
Yeah, all around the casket. Yeah. It's Miriam, I think.
Yeah.
I thought it was to go there.
Yep, they're apart now.
Right. I thought it was about going to the other side of the river. No, that's right. Man, video's down here. It's the other another section.
City.
Yeah. It's interesting.
They're just your type, couple weeks ago.
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, I had Manny do the prayer for Israel during the
told me.
service. Yeah. We're almost done.
Guys, okay?
Yeah, they're almost done. Just a little bit on that side there, and in front of me too. There's.
Where are Joyce's parents?
They're all the way at the front. If you're going out, it's to the left.
Gotcha.
Far left.
Just all part of them are all.
Marty,
Yeah.
and Steve in front of me in the section here.
Yes, we got it to halfway. I still haven't found my other ribbon. I would have.
It's a little bit in front of me over here.
Daddy's here. Zadie's here, Bubba's
Good.
here,
Put the top on.
and
so-
Daddy's on the side.
I'm assuming. Oh, yours?
Well, one of